Hey, how you doing? I'm, I'm Bill Campbell, the court reporter.
Hi, I'm Jim Valentine. I'm the attorney for number 4. That's ADA cars.
Bill, it's Tom Scott at the Township office. We're going to be starting in a few minutes, all right?
Okay, Tom, thanks.
Hey, Mr. Scott? Hello, Mr. Scott, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry, yeah, my mute was on. Yeah, I'm here. How you doing, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, how we looking? Wait a few more minutes?
Looks like we've got Colleen and you and Ed and Bill Campbell, who is substituting for Cindy.
Okay, Bill Campbell. Okay. Is Mr. Fetterman on? Ken, you there?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay, if everybody's ready,
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my mute was on.
Bill Campbell, you ready? Okay, I guess we're gonna get started then, Mr. Scott. Okay, welcome everybody to the Bristol Township Zoning Hearing Board. I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance real quick, please. Pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. All right, let me introduce a few people here. We have with us Director of L&I, Tom Scott. Our solicitor is Mr. Ken Fetterman. Filling in for Cindy Oliveira is our court reporter, Bill Campbell. And the board is myself, James McMahon. We also have Ed Murphy and Colleen Dunn. So with that being said, we're going to get started. First on the agenda is ML 35 LLC, Bank of America Corporation, 101 North Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina.
And I've got their note, I've got their mail in, so we're good to go on that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Lyons here on behalf of the applicant ML35 LLC. Am I good to begin?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you so much. Like I said, my name is Dan Lyons. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'd just like to start with a brief introduction of the project. So applicant and owner of the property is ML35 LLC, CO Bank of America. The property is located in the PI Industrial Zoning District located at 35 Runway Road in Levittown, Pennsylvania. Property is a 12.07 acre lot improved with a 200,000 square foot warehouse, existing equipment yard, associated parking and related improvements. The applicant uses the property as a warehousing data center for Bank of America, which is a permitted use in the zoning district. Applicant intends to install modular data equipment outside of the existing warehouse and in connection therewith requires the construction of a screen fence around the equipment to ensure its safety and security as the facility is a secure site. Applicant intends to construct the screen fence with a height of 15 feet. Therefore, applicant requests a height variance from Bristol Township zoning ordinance section 205-134 parentheses A parentheses 2 permit the 15-foot screen fence where 8 feet is permitted. As will be presented, 15 feet is required to ensure the safety and security of the site. Additionally, there is already an existing 18-foot screen fence on the property located off the opposite side of the building, enclosing a similar equipment yard. Further, should the board determine that it is necessary, applicant is also requesting a variance from section 205-120 parentheses 52, which requires that applicant must illustrate on the land development plan that there is sufficient area on site to accommodate the parking requirements based on one space for every 500 feet of gross floor area. We contend that a variance from the section is not required as the provision is inapplicable because no land development as defined in the zoning ordinance is proposed and there are no land development plans associated with this project. Should the board disagree and the variance is deemed to be required, as we will present, due to the size of the existing building, 400 parking spaces would be required for this property, which is a physical impossibility on this property. There are currently 171 parking spaces. The proposed equipment yard reduces the number of parking spaces to 123, but under the zoning ordinance, only 61 parking spaces are required for the use of the property, which is less than half of the proposed. The variances are reasonable and represent the minimum variances that would afford the relief and represent the least modification possible of the regulations that issue for the continued operation of applicant's permitted use on the property. The requested relief will not impair the use or development of adjacent properties, nor will it alter the essential character of the neighborhood or have an adverse impact on public health, safety, or welfare. And at this time, I'd like to call our first witness this evening, which is Mr. Jim Roeder from Bank of America.
Dan, can you hear me?
Yes. Is that you, Jim?
Yes, it is.
Can you please state your full name for the board?
James Roeder, R-O-D-E-R.
And what is your position with Bank of America?
Dan, it's Bill Campbell, the court reporter. I need to swear in the witness, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, no problem. Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony I'm about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do, sir.
All right, thank you. Sorry
And
about that.
Jim, I'm sorry. What is your position with Bank of America?
I'm a vice president. I'm responsible for mission critical project management for our data centers in the East region.
And how long have you been with Bank of America?
I've been with the bank for 23 years.
Okay. And how did Bank of America come to acquire the property at issue this evening?
Merrill Lynch in 2004 bought the property. They set up a LLC to buy the property. In 2008, Bank of America acquired Merrill Lynch.
Okay. And it's Bank of America's intention to remain at the property for the foreseeable future. Is that correct?
Yes, it's considered a long-term hold in our global data center strategy.
And the property is located in an existing developed industrial park. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And there are a number of large warehouses like the one that exists on the property in the industrial park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what is Bank of America's use of this property?
It's a warehouse data center.
Okay. And how many employees are there at the data center at its maximum shift?
It's about 50 to 55 employees maximum.
Okay. And are you familiar with the parking requirements under the zoning ordinance?
As you explained them to me, yes.
Okay. And under the zoning ordinance for your use, does that mean that your use requires 61 parking spaces?
That's my understanding.
And under this current plan, you're proposing 123. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you please describe for the board the secure features of the property?
Okay, this is going to be a little lengthy, so please bear with me. It's a very secure facility with no public access. Financial institutions are highly regulated, and data center security and access are a focus of their audits. The property is manned 24/7, 365 by our security vendor. It's surrounded by a K4 rated fence with a card reader controlled gate at the entrance. So anyone wanting to gain access into the facility needs to have a valid ID card, or they need to be entered into our safe access system for security to grant them access. In addition, we have dual authorization card readers at various points throughout the facility, including the main entrance. So visitors without access cards are buzzed in at the main entrance, and they need to sign in at the security console with a valid ID. They are issued a temporary access card, and they leave their driver license with security. Some visitors actually are escorted throughout this facility, and that's determined when their access is granted.
And can you please describe the existing improvements of the property?
Since we acquired the property from Quest in 2004, we have continuously upgraded and improved the property, adding at various times 2 20,000 square foot data centers and supporting infrastructure.
Okay, and there's an existing exterior equipment yard off of the opposite side of the warehouse building, is that correct?
That is correct.
And when I say opposite, I mean opposite of the proposed location, is that correct?
That is correct.
At this time, I'd like to show you exhibits A1 and A2. Are we able to share them? I'm sorry, Ken, do you have them to share, or I could probably figure
You
out?
can
how to-
share your screen.
Yeah, share your screen. I have them, but I can't, I'm not connected in that manner.
Okay,
I mean, I've seen them and I'm actually looking at them, but
I will get them up in just one moment here, if that's okay.
Dan, this is Paul. I have them up if you'd like me to share.
Oh, sure, that's great, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. All right, can everyone see that? There should be an aerial image with a logo A1 in the bottom right corner.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Paul. Jim, can you please tell the board what's depicted in this photograph here?
Okay, we have various things in there. There's electrical switchgear, there's transformers, there's generators, there's cooling towers, water and fuel oil storage within that equipment yard.
Okay, so generally speaking, this is the equipment yard I was referring to that is on the opposite side of the building that we are proposing the new equipment yard to go in. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can you tell the board how tall that screen fence around the equipment yard is?
18 feet, I believe we measured.
And why is this that screen fence necessary for this equipment yard?
To basically visually screen the equipment, and I know some of that equipment is above the wall, and to provide an additional barrier for unauthorized access.
Okay, and can you please explain to the board what Bank of America plans to install on the other opposite side of the building?
Yes, it's going to be a similar screen wall, and within that screen wall, we will have 2 modular data halls that's going to be filled with, actually built by Dell. It's going to be filled with servers. Then we have basically 2 equipment buildings to support that with UPS and batteries and stuff like that, and some transformers in the yard.
Okay, and I'm going to direct your attention to A2, if I can now. A2, is this showing what I described as the opposite side of the building?
Yes, that is the main entrance of the building.
Okay, and that is where the proposed equipment yard would be located?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and moving on to exhibit A3, is this a accurate rendering of the proposed equipment yard?
Yes, it's a rendering of the equipment yard.
And comparing it to the existing equipment yard and existing fence on the other side of the building that we just looked at in A1, is it taller or shorter than the existing?
It's slightly shorter. It's at 15 feet, and that's once again to screen what's inside the wall and provide a physical barrier for unauthorized access.
And it's shorter in length as well, is that correct?
Yes, the other one basically spans pretty much the length of the building, where this one is only a portion.
Okay. And is there any way to install the modular data equipment you propose in this yard into the other existing yard?
No, if you look at that picture A2, there's not a lot of room, or A1.
Okay. And generally speaking, how much experience do you have with this type of equipment?
I've been building and maintaining data centers for 17 years now. We've actually installed similar modular data halls down in Virginia recently. We have 6 of them down there, and also Texas, even though I wasn't involved in the Texas projects.
And what about this equipment and information stored therein necessitates this 15-foot tall screen fence?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of electrical service in there, and there's servers in the Dell modules, which houses a lot of banking functions. And I think you're going to get into that, anything from personal information to savings, checkings, IRA accounts, to credit cards, your mortgage, trading in the New York Stock Exchange, anything could be on those computers in there.
Okay, and how tall are the pieces of equipment that are proposed to be in the equipment yard?
They're going to be about 13 to 14 feet tall. That's why we're proposing a 15-foot high wall.
Okay. And the 15-foot fence would also better shield the equipment from neighboring properties, is that correct?
Yes, it will shield what's inside that wall from neighboring properties.
And is the 15-foot fence required for the continued permitted use and operation of your property?
Yes.
And would this be an overall improvement to the property in your current situation and operation of the property?
State that again, please.
I'll ask it this way. Is it correct that this would be an improvement to the property and the current situation on the property and your operation on the property?
Yes, it's required to support our business needs.
And the zoning code as written creates a hardship upon the property and your operation of your permitted use by permitting a fence of only 8 feet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and the screen fence of 15 feet will provide the security the Bank of America needs. Is that correct?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
And you touched upon this earlier, Jim, but it would also enhance the safety and security of employees, guests of the property, and the general public. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it correct to say that the security of the site is unique and of the utmost importance in the sense that the equipment, proprietary information, and secure banking information you touched upon earlier contained within the facility and within the equipment to be installed needs protection for potentially millions of people that bank through Bank of America?
If that equipment was damaged, it would affect millions of people, yes.
In your opinion, Jim, is there any way that the relief, if granted, would negatively affect the use of neighboring properties?
In my opinion, no.
In any way that it could be unsafe to the public?
No.
And is there any future development proposed or contemplated at this time?
Not at this time.
And overall, in sum, is this the best development plan for the continued operation of your permitted use on the site?
Yes, this is our best plan.
And the project is suitable for the property and Bank of America's operation there on the site, is that correct?
Yes.
And is this the minimum afforded relief that will provide Bank of America with what it needs to continue its secure operations on the site?
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, I have no more questions for Jim.
Does anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Rover? I do have one. Was there ever a proposal put forth to put an addition on the building instead of fencing in what you have to fence in?
We did consider doing an addition. These modular data halls actually provide a quicker installation, they're more efficient than building data halls. They're also little cheaper, and you can basically, not that we're planning on bringing on modules as need requires, that is also another feature of these modular data halls.
Anybody else from the board have any questions? All right, Mr. Lyons, you can continue.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Paul Hughes from Kimley Horn, please. Do you want to swear in Paul?
Sure. Paul, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Paul, can you please state your name, professional background, and professional qualifications for the board?
Sure. Paul Hughes. I'm a professional civil engineer. I have a bachelor's degree from Penn State and professionally licensed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
And have you previously testified before zoning hearing boards in Bucks County and surrounding counties?
I have.
And to the best of your recollection, what boards have you testified before?
Let's see. I got a little list here, so I'll rattle some of these off. Percy Borough, Langhorne Manor, Abington, White Marsh, Plymouth, Upper Merion, Perkiomen, West Norriton, Conshohocken, West Conshohocken. That's all I wrote down.
Thank you, Paul.
welcome.
Have you been previously admitted as an expert?
I have.
At this time, I'd like to move to admit Paul Hughes as an expert in civil engineering and site design.
So admitted.
Thank you. Paul, your company designed and prepared the plans at issue before the board this evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you please give the board a summary of the proposed project, and please feel free to reference any of the exhibits as well.
Sure. Actually, I'll reshare quickly. I'm referencing Exhibit A1, depicting the existing approximately 200,000 square foot warehouse building with the existing equipment yard in the front with the approximately 18-foot high barrier. Along the left side of the building, kind of beyond view, is a parking lot, and I'll scroll down to A2 to show from the northeast the view of the existing building with a continuation of the parking lot, an old, generally no longer used loading dock area, and that's, as Mr. Roeder testified, the main entrance of the building. The proposed project includes construction of the aforementioned data modules with the subject screen wall, as depicted here. We are also relocating ADA parking which is now located along the building to the kind of the rear of the parking lot as depicted in the exhibit, the perspective exhibit being shown now.
Thank you, Paul. Are you also familiar with the neighborhood in which the property is located?
Generally, yes. The industrial or the park, yes.
And there are other industrial warehouse uses like this one?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you please describe the approximate location where the equipment yard is going to be located?
Sure. The equipment yard is located on the rear of the building, which is the north side of the building. Generally on center, slightly towards the west side of the building, next to the main entrance. Dimensionally, I have these dimensions here. It's about 125 feet from the perimeter screen to the property line on the rear property line of the north side, and the side property line or the east side is approximately 275 feet.
And what's the that property in the rear there that would be facing the screen fence? Is it buffered there with any vegetation?
It is. In, I guess you could say, for 3 seasons, there would definitely be vegetative screening. There's also a grade differential off both sides on the north and east. There's about I believe about a 15-foot or so elevation change from the parking lot that we're looking at here. See, and the surrounding properties. So I think the combination of the grade change with this building being higher and the surrounding buildings being lower and some existing vegetation, that does provide a little bit of additional screen as well.
And Jim touched upon this a little bit, but by referencing A1, A2, and potentially A3, can you please describe and compare the existing screen fence and equipment yard to the proposed?
Sure, I'll go back to A1. I think the first thing to note is just looking at the proximity of the furthermost or the most boundary of the wall. This is a larger screen wall. It's set further off the building wall. It also goes basically from end to end on the building. If I scroll back to the rendering or the screen wall perspective, you can see that the building is rectangular. So this face of the wall is the same length as the face of the wall on the south side, this being the north side, where the proposed project is being planned. And you can see it probably takes up maybe a little more than half of that length of that building face. And as Mr. Roeder had testified, the existing screen wall is as high as 18 feet as measured in the existing condition. And what's being proposed here is 15 feet. Also, as noted previously, some of the equipment in the front you can see is actually taller than the screen wall. There's nothing proposed for the data center, the data modules in the rear or to the north that would exceed the 15-foot high screen being requested.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the Bristol Township zoning ordinance?
Yes.
And can you please explain why the variance at issue is necessary?
Sure. The ordinance permits a maximum a height of 8 feet for a fence or perimeter barrier. This kind of screen, which we interpret to fall underneath that section. So a variance is required to allow for the 15 feet that's required to secure the yard.
Will there be any improvements that require land development?
No, we don't believe this to fall into the category of land development. In fact, the proposal has been submitted for consideration for a waiver of land development. That being said, we believe that the definition of land development, typically being 2 or more residential buildings or one commercial building and associated improvements. This is more of an equipment installation of an existing facility. And generally what's happening here also is we're swapping out hard coverage for clean stone in the yard between the pieces of equipment. So we're dealing with storm sewerage, in other words, collecting and conveying storm sewer, but not what would be termed stormwater management for new coverage.
Okay. And there are no land development plans that were submitted, is that correct?
We submitted the civil site plans that would be submitted along with any other building permit, but as part of the waiver of land development consideration.
Okay. Should the board this evening determine that the provision is applicable, and that the provision I'm referring to is 205-150 parentheses 52, which requires the land development plan show that there is sufficient area on site to accommodate parking requirements based on 1 per 500 square feet. If the board determines that variance is necessary, how many parking spaces would be required under that provision?
What's the magic number there? 400, I believe.
Are 400 spaces possible on this property?
I don't believe so. I think the short answer is no. You'd really have to squeeze. I think the answer to that is no. The site is pretty well parked out now with the 171 that's provided.
And that hardship that's created there, it wasn't created by the applicant, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how many parking spaces are currently required under the zoning ordinance per the use that is on the property?
61 based on a max shift of employees.
And how many are we proposing?
123.
Is it fair to say that the relief if granted, would not change, alter, impede, or disrupt any neighbor's use of their parcels?
In my opinion, yes.
Relief, if it's authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent properties, nor be detrimental to public welfare. Is that correct?
Yes.
The variances, if authorized, represent the minimum variances that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the regulations at issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Generally, the proposed project then in all of the respects, other than the variances requested tonight, complies to the best of your knowledge with the zoning ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And have all your opinions this evening been in your capacity as an expert in the field?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no more questions for Paul.
Anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
Do not.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lyons, continue.
I have no more witnesses this evening. I just have a brief summary and conclusion. The variances requested this evening are dimensional in nature, which requires less of a burden to achieve than a use variance. Further, as presented, there is an existing 18-foot fence existing on the property, which shows that the variance shall not and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public welfare. Additionally, the physical constraints of the property prohibit the ability to provide 400 parking spaces. There are unique circumstances relative to the variance requested, which circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land, and the granting of the variances is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. The granting of the variances is necessary for the reasonable use and operation of the property, and the variances as granted by the zoning hearing board is the minimum variance that will accomplish this purpose. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Mr. Scott, anything to add to this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment with regards to the matter of the off-street parking. The zoning ordinance section, it does read a little strangely, but I think if the applicant is asking for a variance, that's certainly their right to do so, and the evidence is now on record. But I don't think it's relevant to ask the zoning hearing board if the board feels that if that regulation relates and is relevant to the applicant. I think it's up to the applicant to show why not. And that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Anything to add to that, Mr. Lyons?
I just add that under that provision, it specifically requires that to be shown on land development plans, and as land development is defined in the zoning ordinance, we believe it doesn't meet that definition of land development. However, at this time, I would like to offer and request that variance should it be necessary.
Okay, anything to add, Mr. Fetterman?
I think we should consider as a variance. Land development is a very broadly defined term. And while I tend to agree with counsel for the applicant, this may not constitute it. I've seen opinions where something less than that has. So with that in mind, I think it makes sense just to treat it as a variance request. I think the board is well aware that the property as it sits has less than 400 spots now. So it certainly wouldn't make sense to require the applicant to increase the number of parking spots that it doesn't have already. This is not going to, in my opinion, going to increase the traffic flow or the number of employees coming in and out of the building. And I think the board should rule in the variance, bottom line.
Okay, thank you. The board take note of that, please. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to go to people in the audience who would like to come up and speak. for or against this project? All right, anybody? Going once, going twice? All right, I haven't heard from anybody. So I guess at this time, I am going to ask for a motion from the board to approve these variances or this application at this time.
I'll make that motion.
A motion to approve by Ed Murphy. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Colleen Dunn. I'm going to call the board. Ed Murphy,
Yes.
Colleen Dunn,
Yes.
Jim McMahon, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, moving right along. Next on the agenda, Albert F. Gillick, care of Heritage Pools, 1721 Laurel Avenue, Feasterville, PA, 19053. Please come on up.
Hi, how you doing?
I've also got their mail in, so we're good to go as far as notice and posting.
Thank you, Ken.
Hey, Mr. Gillick, I need to swear you in first, okay? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
So tonight, I'm representing Mr. Robarchek on 7 Erin Drive. He's looking to install a swimming pool. He is over his impervious. The allowable impervious is 42% or 35%, and he's at 42, which sounds like more than it is, but he's over 546 square feet because his lot's only 7,700 square feet. He's offering to mitigate that by doing stormwater management to bring that back down to the equation of 35%. He's looking to do this pool. Obviously, COVID's affected a lot of people. And this way he has something where he can stay home. He does have an existing heart condition. So if something, God forbid, happens again, where we go back into the situation, he's more protected and feels comfortable at home.
I just want to be clear. Is Mr. Robarchik with you or in the audience?
Yes, he is.
Okay. So he's the owner of the property. You're the pool contractor, correct?
Correct.
All right. So this is really his application. You're representing him. But
Correct.
he's the one applying for it. And I just want to make sure that he agrees that he adopts this application as his own.
Yeah.
So if he has to be sworn in to do so, please do so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here and I can do that. Yes,
So do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, good enough. It's a technical point, but I want to make sure we cover it.
So that's where we are. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, just for the board's clarity, they're seeking a 7% variance for impervious surface because a pool is considered to be impervious. 35 is allowed. They're seeking 42, if I understand your plans correctly. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So just so the size, the type and scope of the variance is clear to the board.
I have a question. Now, the impervious surface is that all? Is there also concrete going around the pool?
That's including the concrete. That is, yes.
Okay. Okay. So you stated stormwater management is willing to do. What would that entail?
So it involves a storm trench that is on the lower part of the pool area. And what happens is it's a trench that is, give me 1 second. 3 feet by 6 feet wide by 22 feet long. And what will that will be filled up with stone, and it's a formula, it's a formula that they call a simplified method by Bucks County, put out by, I'm sorry if I'm nervous. This is my first Zoom meeting, so bear with me. But the Bucks County Conservation District puts that out to mitigate water. And that's what we're going with, which you can see in that drawing there. So that will have 2 drains on it, which will collect the water to get them back down to that. And then that water will go back into the ground.
Who's going to evaluate the stormwater management plan that you, or system that you install?
That's a system that actually is developed by the county to go off of. So when you're over so many feet, that they give you a mathematical formula, and that's how it's calculated.
And when it's installed, is it going to be inspected by the township, or?
Every one we've done is always inspected by a township.
And the
Mr.
inspector-
Fetterman, the in-ground pools are reviewed by the township engineer, and it's likely, if not a mortal certainty, that the applicant will be required to sign what the law refers to as an operations and maintenance agreement with regards to the stormwater control facility. Sign it, get it recorded so that it runs with the property, so that whoever else owns it in the future is subject to the same requirement. And it allows the township, if we need to collect reports, to go on the site if need be. But it's administered by the Bristol Township Engineer's Office.
Right,
Thank
and I agree with you and know that. My point was, it's really not, the boards can, certainly ask questions, but it's really not part of the variance request per se. It's part of the pulling of the building permit and the review process that goes along with that in terms of stormwater management. And that's, you made the point I was trying to get to.
But when you say inspected, do you mean as it's put in or for the longevity of it?
No, I just meant that the zoning board is not here to figure out whether your stormwater management plan is adequate or not. That's something
I
that's
see.
further down the line.
Yes.
Yeah, he brought it up, and that's why I asked the
Yeah,
question.
no, you're allowed to. I just want to take that off of your shoulders, because it's not something we necessarily need to worry about. He's definitely going to have to comply with all the necessary requirements.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No, I don't have any.
Ed, anything?
Questions? No questions.
Okay. The concrete around the pool is, what's that, 3 foot wide?
It varies. There's spots that are 9 feet wide for chairs.
Okay. So there's no way to lessen that 9 foot to bring down the impervious surface or anything like that?
I know he was hoping not to, but that's something Scott would have to answer.
Right.
Yeah, the areas that we have the walkway out to there, we had hoped to have it wider than that, but we kept that at 3 feet. The whole entire walkway from the back of the home going out, which is about around 10-foot walkway. And then the walkway around the whole entire front area of the pool is all 3 foot, and the whole entire right area of the pool is 3 foot. So we kept that 3 foot around the pool all around there. The area that we went wider with the 9 foot, like Al had mentioned, would be that left section and back section where you can put a table with umbrella and chairs and stuff like that. So that was that section where to the left, so that we could do the storm trench with the stormwater management on the right side.
Okay. All right, Mr. Scott, anything to add to this application?
No, sir.
Okay, now it's time for anybody from the audience for or against this project that would like to speak. Any neighbors? Going once? Going twice? All right, I need a motion to accept or deny this application.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I need a second. I will second that motion. First motion made by Ed Murphy, seconded by Jim McMahon. Call the board. Ed Murphy,
Yes.
Eileen Dunn,
Yes.
Jim McMahon. Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Very much.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Ralph Di Giuseppe, 518 Lafayette Street, Bristol, PA 19007.
On this one, I don't have, I have no proof of mailing or posting.
Any representative from Mr.
I have everything here. I thought I would present them tonight.
We, in the COVID environment, we've been asking you to.
So these are all the,
Show us what you have.
these are all the receipts from the post office that they were mailed. And these are all the return receipts I mailed to 13 homeowners in that vicinity
Okay. You're
that
gonna
the
need,
township required me to do.
yeah, that's fine. You're gonna need to get copies of that to me. Along with proof of posting.
I'm
and
all
an
off the
application.
copy tomorrow.
Say again?
Well, the property was posted on March 26th.
No, I understand that, but I need the
I've been
documents.
riding by to make sure I even had,
I just want to say one thing. I need the documents for my file. So you're gonna have to get them to me. So sometime tomorrow,
Okay.
scan them, scan the green cards.
I'll be there
Whatever
first
else.
thing tomorrow morning.
That's fine. I think we can proceed based on what I've seen and the representations made, just as long as I get the hard copies.
Ken,
scanned.
before we move on, could you just supply the applicant with your email address?
Certainly. In fact, if you, why don't you give me your
I
email
have that.
address? Yeah. All right, if you don't, I'll send you an email now rather than take the time over the phone. But if you have it, you have it.
I have it.
Okay, great. We can proceed.
You can continue. State your name for the record, please.
So it's Ralph Di Giuseppe.
All right, you need to be sworn in.
Ralph, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All
I've
right,
been working on this project with Mr. Conca, who started this about a year or so ago. And I became the owner in equity with this project, and we're proposing to build 7 new single-family homes on this site. I'm gonna have my engineer explain the 4 variances that I feel that are minor variances. I've been the builder for over 35 years. I've been in business for almost 50 years.
We looked at this project numerous ways and we felt this would be the best way for this development to take place without exiting anyone out on the Bath Road, doing a center street, which required a couple variances, and keeping all the traffic off of Bath Road, where the backyards would face Bath Road and the homes would face inside the center. So I'll have Mr. Stoneback, who is my engineer, present this case, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Okay, Mr. Stone, you there?
I'm here.
All right, you need to be sworn in.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Richard Stoneback. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. Been doing land development projects for over 40 years. I'm currently the president, Charles Shoemaker Engineers and Surveyors in Abington. And we have been working with Mr. DiGiuseppe to come up with a plan that's workable. I think Mr. Conca had tried some similar designs and was frustrated and decided to just put the property under agreement with an experienced builder like Mr. DiGiuseppe in order to allow him to use his experience to put together a plan that made more sense maybe than what they were trying to do before. The site is 2 acres. It's has frontage on Bath Road, Century Avenue, and Green Avenue. It has large spruce trees along Bath Road and also along Century Avenue. If you could share the screen, or if I could get the screen, I could bring up my plan.
Yeah, go ahead. You can share.
Just again, it's a technical point. You say there's an agreement with the owner and the builder. I don't see that as a part of the packet that I received. What is the nature of that agreement?
Well, I'll defer to Mr. DiGiuseppe, but I believe he has an agreement of sale.
Okay, we'll need a copy of that as well. You can redact the purchase price if you like.
This is the plan that we've prepared, and as my client has mentioned, we have frontage on Bath Road, and when we studied the property, we thought that the existing spruce trees along Bath Road provide an excellent buffer. PennDOT pushed back to Mr. Conca when he proposed multiple driveway accesses to Bath Road. They frowned upon all the additional driveways because of the volume of traffic on Bath Road. By reversing the homes and putting in a shared driveway, we can bring all of the traffic to Century Avenue, and then all the traffic from the site would access Bath Road at the singular point of Century Avenue, and you wouldn't have conflicting left turns happening all across the frontage of the property. So I mentioned the 2 things about the site that we thought were very unique relative to the design. One was the Bath Road frontage. The second was this large row of spruce trees that wraps around Bath Road and about half of the Century Avenue frontage. We're in the R1 zoning district, which is a 10,000 square foot lot, approximately 1/4 of an acre lot size. And we identified 4 areas of relief in order to make this plan viable. And we believe that they're all justified based upon the characteristics of the property. The first one, I have a list and there's 4 on my list. I'll start with them in that order. Since we ended up with a shared driveway, which would be owned by the lot owners and maintained by the lots that will access by the driveway, we end up with additional impervious on the lot. And we're requesting that we get an extra 5% impervious from the normally allowed 30%, which would be roughly on a 10,000 square foot lot, about 500 square foot of additional impervious. And that would allow the builder to build a market-driven house size, which is roughly about 1,600 square foot first floor, and maybe the total livable area would be in the 2,600 square feet range. And would also include a 20 by, we're showing a 20 by 12 foot patio, which is about the size of a parking space, which is normally 10 by 20 for an order of reference. The project has public sewer access, public water, and because it's greater than an acre, would need an NPDS permit from DEP and Montgomery County or Bucks County Conservation District will review that application, as will the township engineer. We'll have stringent stormwater management to address all of the new impervious. We'll have stormwater seepage beds on each of the lots, and then we'll have some additional stormwater for the driveway. All of that is based upon testing by a qualified soil scientist that will determine the permeability of the soil and any limiting zones of seasonal groundwater or rock. So all of the increases in impervious area will be offset by stormwater management. That was our first variance, and just so I can read it, it was section 205D 205-23D to increase the maximum on-lot impervious surface from 30% in the R1 residence district to a maximum impervious surface ratio on lot of 35%. And again, that's because we're going to have this shared driveway and it won't be dedicated as a street, so it will exist on the lots. So that will increase the impervious coverage. Similar, if we had built a street, all of that impervious wouldn't be on the lot. So that's our justification for that variance. The second request is for a variance from 205-109. A variance is requested from the requirement to provide 25-foot wide buffer yard between the residential dwellings and the adjacent utility service and transportation use. And that is necessary because the adjacent property to the west is a firehouse, which would require a 25-foot buffer. Now, we think that the firehouse in itself provides a hardship because they are zoned residential. And so the utility use in the residential district creates the hardship on this property. And what we're trying to avoid is providing a 25-foot buffer along the firehouse. We will have enough room in the side yard to provide adequate plantings to screen it. But that variance request is for the requirement to have the buffer. The third request, 205-109D1, is a variance from the requirement of a Class C buffer yard along an expressway or arterial street. Bath Road is an arterial street. Our plan is designed to preserve these large spruce trees, which in themselves provide the buffer that would have to be planted if it didn't exist. And those trees are significant. There's a photograph of it from Bath Road. You can see how intense that buffer is provided by those trees. So we don't see the need to provide additional buffer screening. And there you can see it in plan view, how they're very mature and provide an excellent screen and buffer. Excuse me. The fourth variance is also related to these trees. Ironically, the zoning ordinance has a definition of woodland that would encompass those trees. And if I can go back to the site plan, I'm going to read the definition of a woodland from your zoning ordinance. Woodlands are areas comprising a quarter acre or more of wooded land where the largest trees measure at least 6 inches in diameter at a breast height or 4.5 feet above the ground. Woodlands are also a grove of trees forming one canopy where 10 or more of the trees measure at least 10 inches in diameter. The woodland should be measured from the drip line of the outer trees. The area encompassing the trees along Bath and Century is approximately a half an acre. And the section of the ordinance that we're requesting a variance from is 205.11, which is the definition. If this is considered woodland, it would have to be preserved. It's Mr. Di Giuseppe's intention to preserve it because that's the way this project was designed, to have that as a buffer in the rear yard. And it doesn't seem logical to then require that buffer to the buffer that he's required would be required to plant to replace the trees if the trees didn't exist. It doesn't make sense that that they should be considered woodlands. They also act as the street trees and provide excellent screening, better than any buffer that could be created that would require years and years to mature.
I just want to make something clear for the board. In the first variance, as far as impervious surface, you're proposing 8 lots. And as I understand your plan, your site plan, you're going to go over that impervious surface on lots 2, 3, and 4 only, correct?
Yes.
So the other 5 lots, you're not seeking a variance for impervious with regard to those lots.
That's correct, sir.
And I guess also with the second variance, it's only in one spot on the project that you're seeking that variance. It's not.
That's also correct. It would be adjacent. What we're showing is lot 1.
Right. Okay. Just want the board to understand the scope of what they're being asked to approve.
This project would certainly need subdivision and land development approval through the township. And as I mentioned, there's lots of other permits for sewer, stormwater, erosion control, landscape design.
Is that all you have, Mr. Stoneback?
That's all I have.
Anything else, Mr. Di Giuseppe?
No, I've been getting knocked off the internet, so I'm back on with my phone. So I missed a lot of Rich's presentation, but I'm sure he presented everything that was necessary.
Ken, do you want to make that statement you made earlier about property sales?
Well, yeah,
Pardon?
there's a mention that you're an equity owner through an agreement of sale. So we're going to need that document in addition to the green cards. And as I said, you can redact the purchase price if you like, but we're going to need the agreement of sale.
That's fine. I'll have it there first thing in the morning.
Yep, no
Mr.
problem.
Mr. Conca was going to be here tonight, but I ran into some family issues, so it just didn't work out.
Okay, does anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. DiGiuseppe or Mr. Stonebach?
I have no question.
Colleen? Okay, Mr. Scott, anything to add to this application?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, anybody from the audience would like to speak for or against this project?
Yes, hello, I'd like to just make a couple comments. I have a couple questions.
Okay, state your name and you have to be sworn in for the record, sir.
Yeah, my name is Gary Dunbar, and I'm actually the property owner of the property across the street.
Mr. Dunbar,
Century
I swear
Avenue
you
there.
first. Mr. Dunbar, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
Mr.
just looking at the plot plan here, and I'm just looking at the 7 buildings. I'm assuming that's the 7th one over by the existing garage.
That's correct.
Okay, and my other question is, you're saying that the houses along are going to, like, their back's going to be too back. What about along Century? Their back's going to be Century?
No, the houses on Green, there's one on the corner. Not really sure whether that house is going to face Green or Century. Right now, we're showing it facing Green. That would face Green, so that wouldn't face the shared driveway. And I think I showed lot 5. It's the lot in the middle along Century on the south side of the shared driveway. That lot would face Century.
Okay, the front of the house would face it then.
Correct.
And the other thing with the trees, I'm really glad you're leaving the trees there. My question is, the trees along Century, they're also going to remain?
Except where we will need to cut down a few to get the driveway out to Century.
Understood. Okay, that's pretty much all I had. Not looking forward to having new neighbors, but progress got to go on, so.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Anybody else from the audience for or against this project like to speak? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Ken, anything to add before we make a motion?
No, I'm clear. I just wanted to make sure the board was clear as to which lots needed impervious surface relief and the fact of one of the buffers only pertain to the Bath Road side.
Okay, so at this time, I'm gonna need a motion from the board to accept or deny this project.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I'll call the board. Ed Murphy,
Yes.
Colleen Dunn,
Yes.
James McMahon, yes. All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
very
good evening.
much. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, please make sure you get me those cards and that agreement first thing.
I will be there first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Okay, last on the agenda. Mustafa Erickman, 87 Twin Oak Drive, Levittown, PA, 19056. Please come on up, please.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Scott.
you can tell me if you'd rather hear from me later. That's fine. I'll be here for the duration.
Well, you know, Mr. Scott, I want to bring something up as solicitor. This application essentially exactly mirrors the application we heard in December, which the board denied. The only difference is there's been an exchange of parties. I know Mr. Scott thinks the lease is exactly the same, and it is, but there is an assignment of that lease to the new applicant, if you will. But all of the presentation related to this is exactly the same as what you had heard, Chairman. And this was one of those situations where you opined on this on your own because we didn't have a quorum at the time. But my only point is you just can't switch a player and come back with the exact same application. And the first question I would ask is there any relationship whatsoever to the original applicant from the current applicant? So I'd like to know that right off the bat, because if there's any tie-in, they had a right to appeal it, they didn't appeal it. And unless they can show me and the board where there's something different, I wouldn't even allow this to go on because everybody would have 2 and 3 bites of the same apple and we'd never get anything done. So I'd like to hear from the applicant or his counsel on that point.
Yes, actually, he was working with me and then he rented that location. But then he decided to move to Florida. And I own a couple more dealerships on the Bristol. So I just want to open a new dealership with just selling the high-end cars. So my idea is totally different than his idea. I don't know what he was thinking, what his idea was, but my idea is opening a high-end sales and rents, whatever.
Mr. President.
That applicant was represented by
Mr. President.
Valentine as well. So
Mr. President, Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah.
I am attorney for Mr. Eckerman, and I'm going to use him as my witness. If we're going to have him speak, maybe we should swear him in. But I have an explanation for your concern.
Okay, so let's hear it.
If we can get there.
Let's hear it. And by the way, their mail-ins are good. I've received them, so that's not an issue. Why is this application any different than the last one at all?
Right. When we looked at this, with the use is still the same, a used car lot. But when we were here last time in December 14th, I represented another LLC, and there is no relationship per se between this LLC and the other one. And as Mr. Eckerman said, the previous person moved to Florida and took his business with him. In this particular case, one of the concerns that we had was the parking situation or putting the used car lots, putting the used cars on the property. There is a map in my presentation, which I submitted, slide 10, that shows the way that we can park the cars. And basically, when we were here before, even if when I read the last report, Mr. Fetterman, you were not offended by the use of the property as it was set up. We had a problem with car carriers where the president said that car carriers were coming to the property. If you look at the assignment of the lease, that issue has been resolved because in the assignment of the lease, we now have permission from the adjacent property, the Risque Club, in the assignment to unload and offload the cars in the back of that parking lot. With me as a witness is Mr. Bob Fricalti, and he is the property manager for those both properties, the one we're trying to establish the business and the Risque. He represents the owner of those properties. He can further explain what we did to make this a go. So there is a lot of differences from the first time we came. One of the things is Mr. Eckerman does not plan to do a wholesale used car lot. As he just stated, he wants to do a high-end luxury car business. So the number of cars on that property will be less than when we came from the first time. We have significant parking space, employer space, and we can limit the cars as we need. But all the questions that were before the board and before the president on December 14th have been resolved, and that's why we're back. Now, when we looked at the background, the use, the economic impact, the traffic impact, environmental impact that we had, or that I had discussed for the previous tenant, that hasn't changed. We still benefit. I mean, it's still a beneficial business. It helps the other businesses. It helps the township with tax revenue. This property has been basically vacant for over 2 years, longer now. But, you know, these are eyesores that we can correct. Now, there are a lot of benefits, and the concerns from the meeting before, I think, have been resolved, and that's why we're back. I didn't see that there was a need to regenerate or reinvent the wheel if we corrected the concerns that the board had the last time. Now,
Okay, so
Mr.
let me just interject. I didn't mean to steal the meeting from my chairman or the board. I just wanted to flush this out up front. There are 2 board members that were not members of the board in December. They did not hear the presentation. I agree with you that there's a difference in entities. I don't really think there's much difference in substance, except you're addressing what really sort of turned out to be not in your favor, the fact that there was a large motor vehicle carrier offloading cars when it was represented to the chairman that there wouldn't be. I mean, have you overcome that? I'm going to leave that to the board. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware, and the chairman, I believe, would remember that we've been down this road before, and it's a question of whether they want to allow the use variance for this project. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and allow you to go on. Mr. McMahon, it's really your control at this point.
All right, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. May I? Just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Mr. Scott, you're up. Go ahead.
All right, so the township has some concerns about this. The first issue is that, as Mr. Fetterman already went into, this application is very similar to one that was denied, and there's a lot in the application materials itself that would seem to indicate that this is, a party trying to get another at bat with the same thing. And if the board will grant the applicant the right to proceed tonight and introduce evidence and whatnot, I would like to put a marker in this to let you know that it's very likely that Bristol Township, through the council, will want to get involved and make a case at the meeting in May. So at a minimum, we're asking that the matter be held open, even without regard to how much evidence gets taken tonight, because we have grave concerns that this is a repeat of the previous application, right, which, as you already explained, Mr. Fetterman, the applicant could have appealed to the Bucks County Court of Common Pleas, and the township would have automatically been a party to that, and we could have been working on this. The
Right.
second thing I'm offering is that if the applicant agrees to a continuance, we, meaning the staff at Bristol Township, myself and probably the township engineer, can meet with them, the parties involved, and go over what the actual plan is. instead of having it, reviewed tonight with everybody cold, we'd like to see the, what the plan is, and be able to comment on it knowledgeably, at a future meeting. Obviously, you can decide that that's not the case. The applicant can fight it, and you guys can go on. But I can almost guarantee that there's going to be a problem with this,
Right.
procedurally, and with the township making an appearance, and first of all, wanting to know what the case law is, if somebody can submit an application again, and two, that the problems that were obvious in that last application, and they were not solely, no disrespect to Mr. Valentin, not solely dependent on the fact that the car carrier showed up one day when we were told there would be none. It's the off-street parking, the demarcation between the required off-street parking for the business and the vehicle, and the on-lot or adjacent lot vehicle storage. These, we need to have a better understanding of what these issues, of what this plan is, before we think that the zoning hearing board can take another stab at this. That's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Scott, I tend to agree with, so not to get hyper technical, there's two concepts in the law. One's known as collateral estoppel, the other one's res judicata. And there are certain strict requirements to apply these theories, but essentially collateral estoppel is a concept that essentially, if you've had a hearing and there've been finding of facts on basically the same set of circumstances, essentially you're collaterally estopped from trying to reprove those facts that have already been found. And in the opinion that was issued, there were findings of fact. There are legal arguments, and I can think of them on both sides, that would say, on the one hand, that they're really collaterally estopped from reproving anything that was factually determined. I realize that the applicant is different, but the landlord involved is the same. And you may not have a perfect match of parties, but the circumstances are involved are close enough that the township may want to take that position. And res judicata is just basically a similar concept that's a little more broadly applied to not the facts at hand, but the decision that was made in a situation where the case was adjudicated on the merits, which in this case it was. So I would agree with Mr. Scott. Again, I'm not trying to foreclose Mr. Valentin from trying to move this forward, but I think if the township wants to be heard and has a legal opinion on either of these concepts, as it may apply to a zoning opinion, I think it makes sense to allow the township to be heard. And especially, I think it would be in the applicant's best interest to meet with the township first, because they may be able to distinguish points that could be found as facts in this case that would be helpful to the applicant or not. But I think there are real legal questions at hand here, notwithstanding an exchange of the LLCs. And that's what I want to say. So I would recommend to the board and to the applicant that the applicant agree to a continuance and the board agree to it as well.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah.
Hi, I want to thanks for pointing it out that both Ed and I were not on the board in December, and I would not feel comfortable progressing any further at this point because I don't know what transpired in December, and I haven't had time to do any research on that part.
Right, and I have.
So I just want to let that be known.
Yeah, and I have an opinion that I could send you, which you would see. It basically, if you look at the opinion, because I did before I got on the Zoom meeting, it addresses basically the entire presentation that they want to make. So on all fours, if it were the same applicant, I would tell the board you can't proceed. I wouldn't even question it. The fact that they switched an LLC, and I'm not saying that in an underhanded manner, I think gives them some possibility that they may move forward with this application. But if the township had something to say about it, I think, notwithstanding the fact that we're independent of the township, so to speak, they could appeal it. And why end up having them appeal a zoning board decision when that can be resolved up front? nobody wants to deal with the appeal process unless it's necessary.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Valentine, what's your thoughts on this whole situation?
I am in disagreement with Mr. Fetterman as to where we're here, but nevertheless, I think he brings up a very good point that maybe we should meet before the next May hearing to look at the points that we're bringing up because we feel that there are significant changes to the last application. We do have a new LLC who is a different entity, and the owner of the property has nothing to do with this. He's just renting. So I think we have, I think we're okay on those issues. Nevertheless, I do give a lot of weight to the fact that our last hearing on December 14th really was just you, Mr. President. You know what I mean? And the other board members did not hear it. If Mr. Eckerman is in agreement, I would advise him that we should take a continuance for next month. But between now and next month, if we can get together with some of the council members to sit down and just show them exactly what our plan is, I would agree to that.
Mr. Ackerman, at your advice of counsel, do you accept what he's proposing?
Yes, sure. We can meet whenever you want to, but I just want to explain. I'm doing this business at the Bristol Township since 2009. I have a lot of businesses at Bristol Township, and my first dealership since 2011, and I have 3 another dealerships at the Bristol Township. So I'm really upset about there are people thinking that I just took it over and doing like a shady things to apply another thing. Is I feel
no, we're at this point,
you know, I mean, it's
I don't
just I want to shade it. That's all.
I don't think anything is less of you, Mr. Ackerman. It's just at this point, it's something that all the I's have to be dotted and the T's have to be crossed before we can get to this, back to this point. So I think the advice of counsel and the advice of our solicitor and the director of L&I, that I think at this time, guys should ask for a continuance, and then we'll take it from there. You guys meet with the township, and then we'll see what happens from that after that meeting.
Right. I want to make the point to the applicant. This is not an issue of thinking. You've addressed the question as to whether or not you knew the other guy or he's still a partner and he's not. So we accept that. So there's nothing here we're saying that you're doing is shady in any way, shape, or form. This really comes down to technical, legal issues that are best resolved in the manner that's been suggested, rather than trying to force a square peg into a round hole right now. That's the best way I could put it. But it's no reflection on your character or you operating as a businessman. So please don't think that.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Scott.
if you'll indulge me, I'm sorry, just one more thought. We are looking at a variance application. If I'm reading this correctly, it addresses the use, and the use is not permitted, the sale of vehicles in the C district. But we don't know what other variances may be needed, and we tried to touch on this the last time this matter was before the board. Are there off-street parking variances needed? Are there variances needed with regards to, for instance, as we discussed in the last matter, buffer yards? Are there issues with regards to access to the lot, to curb cuts? There's a few things. My suggestion would be, now we will meet with the applicant and we will expel a lot of carbon dioxide, letting him know what we're concerned with. One of the things that would be very, very helpful, and very, very helpful when the matter gets back in front of the board, is if we can get a plan by a surveyor, somebody that can draw this up, just like the one we saw in the last case with doesn't have to be in color, right? Doesn't have to be a work of art, but somebody that can depict what is going to happen on that lot with the meets and bounds and the parking areas shown correctly, like that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to move forward, I'll respectfully suggest that you're missing one more expert other than counsel, and that would be an engineer or a land surveyor who can express an opinion as to what this thing is going to look like. And so the board would make a more informed decision in any event.
Mr. Valentine,
I am at the mercy of Mr. Eckerman. I believe we should take the continuance and meet with Tom Scott in between now and the May hearing. I think I can come up with information and we can look at bringing another expert. That will give us the ability to do that. But I can do the research about maybe another township that has a C commercial property that has granted a variance. You know what I mean? And then we can come back and bring that to this township. And that way we would have something to actually look at.
That is not really going to be binding. I think you really need to address your use for this particular property. You know, I don't have to tell you in the law dealing with land, every piece of land is unique. And it's not going to matter all that much what some other board may have ruled. That would be I would surmise that it won't matter. I would spend my time focusing on this project and tightening it up as to what it is you really want to do and how it's going to look. Just my suggestion.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Mr. Eckerman, would you take a continuance?
Yes, but before the date, we can meet and we can explain.
all right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask for a motion for continuance on this application from the board, please.
I'll make a motion to continue.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we leave, Mr. Scott, will you get in contact with us or do you want me to contact you? Once we get some information together.
Yeah, if you could, email me, tscott@bristoltownship.org. We will set something up. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. At this point, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Ed Murphy,
Aye.
Colleen Dunn,
Aye.
Jim McMahon, aye. The ayes have it. Thank you,
Hey,
everyone.
Ken.
Come on.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
Good evening.
Thanks, guys. Ken, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, thanks for that explanation, because I kind of felt lost because I didn't have any information in front of me from the previous event. So I think that was excellent what you did there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Okay, everyone have a nice evening. I don't know about you, but it's time for dinner.